Hey. Welcome to your weekly corner, Späti. I don't know what happened there. It's been a long week.
You added an extra hey, and I feel assaulted.
It's your boy Kieran, and I'm joined by Nick.
Hey.
And I'm joined by Rob.
Hey.
Yeah, see, Rob did the proper amount of hays.
Hey.
Oh, I see.
You're fired, Kieran. We're
replacing you.
We're replacing you with the clone of Rob.
Yeah, with a huge announcement, Kieran's been replaced by Virgil Texas. Oh yeah. Yeah, so this is gonna might be a bit of a rough discussion, but sure.
God,
fuck
2
it.
weeks in a row now. I was literally just thinking of just like writing you and just being like, no. Like, can we do something different?
Yeah, fuck this. I want to talk about like Skrillex and like the different types of boners you thought existed when you were 13. Yeah, no, this is an episode I did some research for, and I've entitled Frontex Shite, or Why I'd Kill Myself If I Worked in Brussels. Because
why you should kill yourself if you work for Frontex is also the third working title.
That's a contradiction because like you'd be too like anyone with that level of honor would not work in Brussels in the first place.
No,
I mean, I think it's interesting you should bring up the whole like killing themselves if they work in Frontex, because we might get to that actually. That does kind of come up weirdly enough.
Oh, look at that. I didn't even read the notes and I'm already foreshadowing. I'm just a good storyteller.
Yeah, I understand the arc of history and which way it bends. All right. So I guess, yeah, we're going to talk about Frontex. Nick, you saw some stuff happening in Spain.
Oh, yeah. So the thing that then, I think the thing that then really kind of puts us in a good position this week to talk about it is that there has been a influx of migrants coming from Morocco into Spain, into Ceuta, I believe it's called.
Is it Ceuta?
Ceuta, yeah. I don't know. I don't speak Spanish, and I sure as hell don't speak Spanish. So, which for those who don't know, it's that like really weird peninsula that then is on Morocco that is like Spain's version of Gibraltar. And so it's a really weird turn of events. So Spain took in this guy who is kind of like, he's a militant leader. His name is Brahim Ghali, who is like kind of seen by Spain as a war criminal.
Yeah, fair enough.
And in terms of then him ending up in Spain has been like a lot of protest from Moroccans, particularly the border guards, and they've more or less just kind of opened up the borders so that then the Moroccan border patrol won't enforce the borders. So then Spain is just kind of having all these people pour into it, and there's been a lot of disturbing footage of people, mostly minors, getting assaulted by the Spanish Civil Guard, and the Spanish government sent in like hundreds of reinforcements of like the military police, the Coast Guard and stuff like that, to kind of deal with the situation of it. They were firing like tear gas at children and stuff like that, and then simultaneously like doing these like photo ops for international media of like, look, see, we're helping these kids out of the water. One person drowned the other day. I don't know if that number's gone up. I would not be surprised. There was also videos of them, Spanish border guards and the Coast Guard, getting in fights with not fights, because the dudes, the refugees, weren't really fighting back, but they were throwing them into the water. And, these very disturbing altercations kind of happened. And I think that was kind of like seeing that footage happen this week, and kind of seeing this very weird thing of the sense of them, because Spain is taking in a dude who they're declaring as a war criminal. They're bringing him in for like COVID treatment, and then also simultaneously having a reaction, then the sense of, because he's like there's this weird border dispute too simultaneously with Morocco and this guy's military like organization and whatnot, that it ended up with then this footage that we saw, the other day. And I think that we saw a lot of these things, shared and whatnot. And I think the thing that then's often overlooked within Europe is in this discussion of that Europe has its own bizarre Coast Guard that is kind of this weird quasi. It's weird because it isn't. It's like somehow legal and somehow not legal at the same time. Like
yeah, they play in this space.
Yeah,
it's very concerning,
and it's very much in this sense of that. Then the whole European ideal then of like policies towards asylum seekers and refugees hasn't seemed to have been a thing that, I mean, whether it was a thing to begin with is a question, but like really worsened and doubled down with it in the sense of the quote unquote refugee crisis because of the Syrian civil war, where it kind of became much more apparent that Europe has a massive crisis on its hands. Not the refugee crisis, but a policing crisis, you could call it. I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah, so that kind of leads us to like, well, most of that footage being shared around was La Guardia Sofia, which is, I don't know, I guess like what you would kind of consider like
the National Guard or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, because the policing in Spain is like a responsibility of like the local region. Yeah.
Sanchez did send people though to North Africa though.
Yeah, of course. So that's like what was happening there, but it does bring in conversations of Frontex. Frontex has this like weird, Frontex has like an image situation going on. I think the video we watched just before we recorded of just like, they kind of want you to like them. They're
definitely like the stereotypical, like anyone who thinks that they're doing something for like European values should automatically be liked, even if that European value is being a fascist piece of shit on the border. Like they don't seem to get the memo that it's like, oh, are we the baddies? Because they stand for this like fake liberal ideal of Europe. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you're European, baby.
Well, yeah, it's just like the weird contradiction of just like, hey, let's defend this incredible like liberal institution-y type thing. There's this the golden city on the hill, just with violence.
I feel like they're like doing like 40% of the like liberal Zionist playbook. Like they're not fully there. Like, no, this is all to like protect something very important. But I don't know, a little haphazard, I have to say that like their heart's not really in it. So there could be some improvements on the social media team from Frontex.
well, like everything.
Rob is now leaving the podcast to become the social media manager for Frontex.
Yeah. Social media czar for Frontex.
I mean, the playbook's written for them already, so it's like you just gotta copy off your neighbor's test.
I know it's definitely like a material issue because like everything that's run, like every version of something that exists in a nation state but that is run through Brussels, like or run from Brussels or whatever, like as the EU top level institution, it just has like less money, less drive, less power to be had. It's just like no one's in it, and no one's heart is in it, I guess. Yeah, but I want to talk about Frontex as an institution because it has been like. It has some problems, and I think the question we're going to answer at the end of this is like, what role does Frontex serve structurally? But before I can do that, I have to introduce a little bit of a character. Okay, so I thought he was Italian.
I was just about to ask. He's Italian, isn't he?
He's not.
Oh, God damn it!
So I was very certain that his name was Febreze Leggeri, but I've been informed he's French.
Oh, boo.
So Fabrice? Like, I don't know what
my man Febreze over here.
Yeah, my fucking best fucking the executive director of Frontex, Febreze Leggeri. Yeah, let's go.
Febreze Leggeri.
Febreze Leggeri. So yeah, Leggeri's this French civil servant. He's been like, he did 2 years as Interior Minister of France. Before that, he was just like, at one point, he was the ambassador to South Korea. Things like that. Just constantly like a bureaucrat within the French and EU system.
How do you get these jobs that aren't jobs?
Oh man.
I was thinking about this earlier. There are so many like evil jobs out there that you can get. Like, how many like nerd social climbers who will just sell their soul if they had one at all to like get a somewhere in the EU system, somewhere in the EU bureaucracy, like a solid role where it's like, hey, I may not be the most evil person, but I can do a lot here. I gotta say, I got some room to work. You know, we could spread the evil around. There's enough evil for everybody, guys.
But what you want is one of those like cushy evil jobs where you're like the ambassador to another country that's also doing evil with you, so you don't really have to do anything.
All right,
you're the Belgian ambassador to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I'm the corner Späti ambassador to the UAE.
I am covered in Dior belts, pristine white Dior belts. It was gifted to me at every ceremony.
Oh God, I am who Jeremy Fragrance wishes that he was.
Yeah. Jeremy Fragrance does strike me as the like son of an ambassador type.
Yeah, and the ambassador to either Saudi Arabia or the UAE.
Yeah. His dreams.
He was baptized in Dior Sauvage.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like
his dreams
Saudi
were
Arabia
encouraged as a child. You can tell. Fostered.
Saudi Arabia would be the like perfect country for him because it's just like, you know, no women around except for aesthetic purposes. Everyone's gay, but no one talks about it. Yeah.
There's an app where you can get a woman to come to you for your video and spray perfume on her. It's much more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. But yeah, but he's been since 2015, he's been executive director of Frontex. He's Frontex's manager, effectively. Theoretically, Frontex answers to the EU and the EU Commission President for like interior stuff, which we'll get to why that's like not working. His resignation has been called for several times by the left group in the EU, which is not surprising. He's been accused of having unregistered meetings with unregistered lobbyists that represent the weapons, surveillance, and biometrics industry. From 2017 to 2019, Frontex and him met with 138 private groups, 108 companies, 10 research centers or think tanks, 15 universities, and one non-governmental organization. A human rights organization was notably absent from any of these meetings. So yeah, he's currently in a scandal at the moment for that, mainly because he lied about it. He was asked about this earlier if he was doing it, and he was like, I was going to do an Italian accent, but no. He said no.
Just do it. It's just, you know what? He's Italian in our hearts.
No, I am Febreze Leger.
I like the name Febreze Leger.
I love the name Febreze Leger.
But the word that sticks out to me is the unregistered, because he can he's doing whatever he wants, whenever he wants, it sounds like.
Yeah, basically, because there is anyone who's looked at Brussels for more than 5 seconds knows that it's like a hobby, like a lobbyist, like
the hobby lobbyist.
Disneyland for lobbyists.
Yeah, oh no, I mean, of course.
Have you seen Mini Europe? That is like a hobbyist paradise. It's like a train set version of Europe. But yeah, it's very easy to be a lobbyist in the EU. But in the name of transparency, they do have like a registry of like permitted lobbyists. And that way you can kind of like keep track of so-and-so met with this lobby, blah, blah, blah. Which is, I guess, just a formalized version of corruption, but still.
Yeah,
yeah. But our boy Febreze is doing just like informal corruption, you know, punk, DIY. Yeah, I run a psychopathic agency for border security, and I met with like
Psychopathic Records, who's like the ICP record label.
Febreze is a great name now that I think about it, because like as we were referring to earlier with whatever you want to call it, the Euro washing, right? Like, oh, this serves some like progressive purpose. Like they treat our man Febreze like I used Febreze when I was living alone and my room just stank, and it was like, I'll just spread some Febreze, I'll fix it.
Yeah,
don't have to change anything. A little Febreze. I know just what this situation needs.
Febreze, dog.
Oh god. My favorite Febreze ad, just get completely off track because it's a depressing topic and I've been having dark thoughts about like namely the Israeli occupation, so keeping my spirits up. My favorite Febreze ad was like a very clearly dubbed, either like originally Danish or German ad or something. And a woman walks into a room and goes to her like, I don't know, teenage son and goes, "Have you smelt this couch?" And I was like, who does that? What an insane question is that? Just like doing a line of coke off the arm of your couch, just like, oh yeah, it smells great.
All right. Keep
so that's
on
our
rolling.
boy Febreze. That's our boy Febreze, who I need to introduce for context reasons. He will appear at several points during this. The story that caught my attention when I started gathering these notes a while back was the EU Observer article that was like, Frontex guards could be armed by the summer, and I was like, cool.
Oh fuck! I forgot about that one. This is just like 2021's already been quite a year that I forgot that there's a bunch of I forget who spearheaded it.
It's part of the Corona rollout. So like restaurants open like by early summer, gyms summer, and armed Frontex guards late summer. Everything's according to plan.
There was one country, I can't remember. It was one of the stereotypical ones, like Austria or Hungary or something like that, that then pushed for like this to be a thing. And horrible.
Yeah. So let's walk through what's happening here. Since 2018, Frontex has managed to kind of remodel itself, not as border protection agency, but as law enforcement, specifically law enforcement. It did this like two ways primarily. There was a pilot program in 2017 where they handed intelligence that they had gathered over to Europol. So, they clout chased with Europol and like rode their coattails to being like legitimate law enforcement agency.
Wait, can you explain that? So like they're showing we're helping, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, showing that they can assist an established law enforcement. Like everyone kind of agrees Europol is law enforcement. So therefore, if they're helping Europol, they are also law enforcement.
Gotcha. Look, Dad, I made you a macaroni painting that says "World's Greatest Dad."
I like the concept of you just doing that and then like, yes, now I am a dad too.
That's how it works.
I'm a father to this macaroni doodle. So that's now kind of like the norm, and they basically have the permission to like do a lot of sweeping up of personal information, and they work with a lot of like national police forces. They tout that they have stopped something like 20,000 crimes since 2018, but like, yeah,
I would love to know how they came up with that number.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into how Frontex does like information control, like PR, in a bit. But Leger Febreze, our boy Febreze, does have like this 2018 quote, which is important because we'll see how his tact and his opinion changes later. He's quoted as saying in 2018, "You could consider us a EU law enforcement agency. You could. I'm not saying you should. You could. Cud's doing a lot of heavy lifting on that."
I love like all of these are just different examples of like showing up to a scene of a crime and with like a suit and tie and putting your hands on your hips and being like, "So what are we going to do about this?" Eventually
like
they're just going to stop asking.
Confidently walking up to a group of police in like a trench coat and be like, "What do you got, boys?" Pulling out a cigarette. I was like, I guess that's the inspector, I guess. So fast forward 2 years later to the year of our Lord 2020. The Frontex wants to arm their agents. They want them to have guns. But there is no EU competency for this to happen. So Febreze has to convince national governments to allow Frontex agents to be armed. The EU can't make a ruling saying they can all be armed. at this point, his kind of like his line has changed. Now that we've had like 2 years of helping police with information gathering, he's like, quote, "We are a fully fledged EU agency, no doubt about that. But we are also more a fully fledged European law enforcement." So there's no code anymore. He's just like saying that we are now EU law enforcement agency. This is an address to MEPs. Naturally enough, the big target government that he's trying to lobby is Greece, because that's where the vast majority of Frontex agents are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They love working with neo-Nazis there too, which is a really fun, cool thing.
Yeah. That's why that EU observer title was very optimistic that it could happen, you know?
Yeah. No, that was the thing that when there was those recent border squabbles, as in the sense that Turkey was sending refugees over and then complaining, and then Greece was sending refugees back to Turkey, and then Turkey was complaining. And there were then reports of Greek neo-Nazis coming and helping the Greek police and Frontex, just as sport of like, it's my time to shine, it's my turn to, you know, push back refugees. And none of them faced any you know, consequences or whatever. So
talk about hobbyists. There you go.
Literally, yeah. So that's that was something that is still deeply ingrained in my brain, of just like these like videos popping up of like, you know, people who are definitely not law enforcement helping law enforcement push people back over the border.
Yeah, because this is exactly the justification for arming the Frontex guards. It's not Febreze, whenever he's like lobbying both MEPs or MPs or whatever to like pass this law, he's not bringing up like guns are needed for refugees, because, well, we're not at the point where you can just say that yet, I guess.
It's not like you know, Frauke Petri saying that in like 2016 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is we're still doing, as Rob put it, the Euro washing. We have guns, we would never use them. Don't be ridiculous. No, this is actually in response to
Europe has never invaded. No European nation has ever invaded another European country ever.
Yeah,
that's what Thomas Friedman said.
They all have McDonald's. I don't see the problem. No country that has a supermax has ever invaded another country with a supermax. But yeah, the example he gives is the situation that happened late 2020, where Turkish border guards, Turkish Coast Guard, fired their guns into the air near the river Evros, which is the river that splits Balkan Turkey away from Greece, Thrace from Greece. I guess they did this to scare off Frontex, like they're deer or something. I don't know the purpose of this is. But yeah, this is.
I love there's like a racist angle of this, of like, oh yeah, like, you know, we have to scare the Turk in order to, like, it's not to like murder refugees. This thing that they really want to do. It's to scare off these like quasi-white, quasi-not-white, possibly European, possibly not Europeans.
Well, I love the other aspect of this just as well. It's like, look, tensions are rising with Greece and their neighbor Turkey over like the weird bureaucratic like border mess that we've gotten into. What we feel like will help these tensions is guns. Who here is a fan of NATO? Because that's probably going to be gone soon. Because we're going to fuck this up royally. Yeah, so like there's 800 Frontex agents in Greece, I believe, which is the largest of any of the countries they're present in. Also found out they're present in Albania and Montenegro, which I understand also means they have like absolutely no diplomatic oversight there, because those countries don't vote for MEPs. So even the like sham diplomatic oversight you supposedly have over it is like not present for Albanians and Montenegrins. So that's fun. Yeah. Back to Nick saying the thing earlier about like Frontex agents killing themselves. So there is only one place where Febreze has managed to successfully lobby for his agents to be armed. It is in Poland.
Of course it is.
Good start.
Yeah. It is in Poland, which is where Frontex is headquartered, because Frontex is a relatively
It's located inside a CIA black site.
People go in, they never come out. It's fine. But it was one of those agencies we gave to the new Eastern European countries because it's a new agency and we have to make them feel important. So we gave the Poles border control. Oh no. But okay, caveat. The agents of Frontex are allowed to carry arms in Poland, but exclusively in the offices of Frontex. And only the offices of Frontex. As soon as they leave the building, they're not allowed to have a gun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to
So
an
it's literally
office.
just cosplaying with live ammunition.
Yeah, they're gonna have like some sort of incident in the office. They're gonna do the thing with Brett from fucking Archer, where they just keep shooting this one guy in the office.
Oh God, that's so fucking like. That's the most European answer to like firearm ownership. Is that like you can have a gun, but it has to be in your house. Like how like the Swiss have that. Like you have to own a firearm, but you can like it can never leave your house. Like after your military service, you have to keep your gun. But if that gun leaves the gun safe, you are literally fined by the government. Unless you then write out the proper paperwork in order to take it out.
But we're talking, I don't know. I imagine there's like a good number of employees at the headquarters for Frontex. So is there just like an armory in the basement of the building? I mean, if like does everyone get
Rob's
their own
like, okay, so how could you like describe this building to me? Like, you know, how many exits?
if anyone has any floor plans.
I mean, that is a good question. How many like? Yeah, so I'm just gonna check the Wikipedia and see if we can find any history like. Info about this, because I am curious if they list how many people they employ in their offices in Poland, because I know how many border guards they have, but those guys are like out in various countries.
But maybe they have like a gun waiting for them back at the office.
Yeah, like you get a little locker.
Yep.
You can like
A cubby even.
stylize it. You can get those little like those little chains that like Japanese people put on their phones with like little talismans on it to like show their personality and stuff. Yeah, they just get one of those.
Yeah.
The Frontex building, by the way, looks like absolute dog shit. It's very strange. It's located in Warsaw. It's called the Warsaw Spire.
They told the architect, "How do you say there are no guns here?" with steel.
We need you to encase this building in Kevlar, so none of the bullets can escape.
Ideally, the bullets
inside.
would just bounce around endlessly like a waiting screen on an old DVD player.
Yeah, right.
Can you do that?
Yeah, you definitely could. So the right technology.
700 people work in the offices in Poland.
And like, each one of them has a gun in their cubby. Yeah.
Yeah, you get it with like your from the secretary when you walk in. You get the name badge, and then the little key card to use the vending machine.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so you were saying at the beginning of this episode, I think like, we're kind of all over the place right now, but let's, strap back into, doing a serious episode. There has been, this claim, which is a very hard one, because I mean, like I mentioned, in the sense that Frontex very much, I would say, like a lot of these EU institutions, functions entirely on idealism with a very weird legal backdrop. And I know that then people will probably then respond being like, oh no, it's like the European Union's like, refugee policy is very strict about like, not strict, but it's like very like laid out that then like you can claim asylum, this and that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And no, like there is exemptions for literally everything. There's in the sense too of that then the perfect example I can think of that like Germany declaring Afghanistan as a safe country of refuge, which is in the middle of a continuous war, and that the ultimate reality is that then while there are these EU values, as we've seen within anything when then it is done in a European value, comes down to one, this like idealism that then ideologues are the ones who then kind of control the narrative, and it's just very much always the sense of this feel-goody sort of Europe liberal bullshit thing that's typically backed up with the realities of what preserves liberalism, violence, capitalism, all this other imperialism, whatever. And then the second thing that there is still a lot of sovereignty within individual nations themselves and their own border policies, which Frontex, as you mentioned, kind of tries to close this gap as being this like transnational law enforcement agency that isn't a law enforcement agency that then's like, there to, I don't even like their marketing campaign is like to help refugees or whatever, and that it's also about like their idea of securitization is very much a humanitarian one, and the reality of it is that then it is pretty fucking brutal. There is this stuff of I mentioned the sense of them working with Greek neo-Nazis, but like working with then local police departments and local law enforcements in Hungary have been an example. You mentioned that Albania and
Montenegro.
And where?
Montenegro.
And Montenegro, yeah, where they have like weird jurisdiction because they're kind of like not really legally bound to anything.
Yeah.
And like Serbia and whatnot has a very weird relation within the local authorities and Frontex as well. And it really is like, I always find it this thing that's like never really addressed properly because you can't. Like the structure of how it exists is more like a feeling than it is in the sense of anything else. It's very clear with the sense of how they enforce the borders that it is like complete chaos because Europe's legal things are not like, there is a break of sovereignty, I think, that then's there. Where like Germany can simultaneously enforce its borders, have its own border policy, this and that and that. Hungary can do the exact same thing. They can get a slap on the hand from Europe, while then at the same time simultaneously getting help by European institutions to then maintain their sovereignty of their borders, which is like insanely weird, and yet only can function within people who are like these ideologues of like, if we just have more Europe, it'll be better. And I think that when it comes to border policy, the people who are really for it, Sebastian Kurz is one of the biggest examples of one of the largest like dudes who continuously is like rattling, like banging the war drum of that Frontex needs more and more and more money because they may be EU critical to a degree, but they also want Europe to help preserve their national sovereignty through a border police, which is like odd.
Yeah, like
not odd at the same time.
There's a right wing within Europe, and I think Sebastian Kurz kind of exemplifies that, where they have that kind of like almost American libertarian ideology of like the night watchman state of just like the EU should basically only protect from outside, but not do anything inside, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's the power he wants. He wants the power over what happens in Austria, and he just wants to send this problem to another body, another agency to handle it, basically. So it's interesting you bring this up because in a kind of like public facing way, like Frontex has been like annoyingly active on Twitter. They kind of are trying to appeal to kind of like what Rob called the like almost liberal Zionist, but like the kind of EU flag Twitter kind of people of like, it's happening. The European like cohesive union thing is happening and we're going to defend it. We are a transnational institution. But actually how Frontex works is more insanely bureaucratic than that and doesn't really operate that way to the point of like, in a certain way, if you were to look at it as like an EU flag emoji person, you would think it's not functioning. I would make the argument that it is functioning, but for a different purpose that they think it is. And I'm going to kind of outline that.
The thing I will say too is that then it's the one agency that the EU flag emoji people don't like.
A little bit. I think they can kind of see that it's a little bit evil.
Yeah, it's like the one that then they'll be like, damn, I love Europe, but Frontex is a little fucked up. Like, they somehow have not been able to trick the EU flag emoji people yet.
Yeah, some of them. I feel like there's some difference. I think there's like some EU flag emoji people who are like that, but I feel like people who have flag of their country, EU flag, and then Israel flag people.
Oh yeah, they're yeah. No.
If you have all three of those, or like an American flag instead of an Israeli one, yeah.
It comes down to what kind of fight or what is the level of disagreement, because it's possible, especially and I think something about Europe or like the European identity or EU identity fosters this, where it's like a family feud where, but when the chips are down, we're going to work together. We're going to team up like the superheroes to fight. We may disagree, but, we're on the same side at some point, which is, it's almost like a predetermined antagonism that it's like, I don't like the way they do things. But then, I mean, I'm sure that's the pitch a lot of Frontex people would make, like, you need us because this is part of Europe too.
Yeah, it's zero dark 30. It's like, you disagree with torture, but it gets the job done kind of thing.
The thing that I think is the oddest thing about all this too, because I think that then Rob's idea then of like the liberal Zionist thing is the most perfect encapsulation of this, is that the thing that's always the really weird thing is that also too with like the night watchman state thing is that in order for Frontex to actually work, there needs to be a stronger legal body of Europe, which there isn't. And I guess that then in the sense, like one part it's like good that it doesn't exist in that way. Another part is very bad because then Frontex gets very creative and kind of goes their own way and, will work with who they will in order to be shitty. But the thing that's the oddest is that then the people who then would want Frontex the most to work on that transnational European level don't want that type of sovereignty to then exist on enforcement, which means that Frontex will just infinitely be in limbo and probably just function the way that it does forever and maybe get guns. Like, I don't see the people who lead the conversation about giving Frontex more money are the right wing, who then are obsessed with national sovereignty, and there won't be an agreement of like a legal body with an actual strict legal structure that then can be enforced that will then be governing the borders of Europe. What they want though are like mercenaries that they don't have to pay for, Like that'll
mercenaries that they're already paying for through general taxation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but they don't have to pay for then like themselves through their own like, domestic budgets.
Yeah. The EU contribution money was already coming out.
Yeah.
Let's just use it towards this evil stuff instead of, I don't know, cap reform or something. Or like some pussy shit, like making sure everyone has the same type of light bulb.
Fuck that.
That's exactly. Well, we can give this guy a gun. So I'm gonna kind of go through the recent history of Frontex here and kind of illustrate how toothless all kind of oversight over it has been. Since 2015, the EU, both Parliament and Commission, have been demanding that our boy Febreze hire a fundamental rights officer. This is someone who would work at Frontex, who would be in charge of making sure rights are upheld. For the last 6 years, he's basically just saying nanny nanny boo boo to that and not doing it, and then people in the Parliament get mad and then nothing happens. As of 3 weeks
you mean Europe doesn't work?
No. 3 weeks ago, he did hire someone eventually, a Swedish bureaucrat by the name of Jonas Grimheden.
Sounds evil.
Who's been with the Fundamental Human Rights Committee for the EU for the last 12 years. He has 551 Twitter followers. So
Damn
expect
king.
big things from him.
Well, like that's perfect, right? Because you can just get someone and say like, yeah, see, we did it. And then, what are they? They're just window dressing.
Yeah, pretty much. So
now that's a cushy evil job.
Yeah, there you go. Rob's found his dream
Don't
job.
have to do anything. I like George Costanza at work drumming on my desk with my pencils in Poland.
I will be the next yo. Yeah,
5 AR-15s behind me.
Yeah, exactly. It's my guns. Drumming on the desk with my guns.
I'm playing YYZ by Rush on my with multiple AR-15s.
Oh god. But so here's an example of the structure of Frontex and how things fall apart, especially when you want to do an incident report of like, you did some human rights abuses. Here's how this goes. The EU Parliament complains to our boy Febreze. He says it's serious and will investigate. Step 2. But since Frontex is under the command of the nation it is in at that point, he then has to write to the Greek government, or whoever government, Greek government, to carry out an investigation. Some months pass. The whatever government, Greek government, gets back to him and says, no wrongdoing has occurred. Ligeri dusts off his hands theatrically, and nothing happens.
Damn, you mean to tell me that Kyriakos Mitsotakis doesn't want to look into abusing migrants on the border? What? A party that then became more racist so that they could get
Golden Dawn votes?
Yes, they get Golden Dawn votes are racist and problematic and just won't, actually... Yeah, wow.
But this is the inherent problem with it anyway. It doesn't I don't think it even matters who would be in government because Frontex.
No, I know. I'm just imagining it being slightly worse because Greece is one of the very few countries that has a government that has no coalition.
That's a good point. Yeah, but the thing that is the issue here is that Frontex pretends mainly on Twitter that it is this own organization. But in reality, it is under the command of the nation state that it operates in. If it's in Italy, it's under the command of the Italian Coast Guard. It's under the command of the Spanish Coast Guard, Cypriot Coast Guard, whatever. So you can't really get this fucking nobody French guy based in Poland to write a letter to a state government being like, hey, I think you did some wrong, because the general who made those commands is going to be like, no, get fucked. Always, 100%. It wouldn't even matter. You could have Cyprus and government in Greece. They still have the same weird the civil war was bad in Greece guy running their coast guard probably, who's going to be get fucked, you French bastard. So none of that's ever really going to work. Febreze Leger is aware of this issue. He's brought it up in Parliament of being I can't say He doesn't actually have a problem with it, but he'll say it in to the Parliament, the EU Parliament, I can't say no to a member state of the EU.
Just can't say no to the Greeks.
Can't say no to the
They're
Greeks.
Too powerful. Their racism is over 9,000.
I try to say no, and then they just unbutton one of their shirt buttons, and I see more chest hair, and I'm just yeah. And that kind of leads us to the main controversy, which is the pushback reports. For anyone who doesn't know, pushbacks are operations in which various coast guards will do various tactics to push a refugee boat back to where they came from. This can range from relatively innocent compared to what they can do, driving really fast nearby them to create waves to push them back into Turkish waters or Libyan waters. Or it can get really sinister and be start shooting at them, start firing warning shots, quote unquote warning shots, to tow them out of the water and then claim it didn't happen. Things like this. These reports have been thoroughly reported about, like they've been thoroughly exposed, like Bellingcat, Ard, Der Spiegel, the fucking TV Asahi, which is a Japanese public news channel. They've even clued to this fucking thing happening. So yeah, it's kind of uncontroversial that this stuff does happen. There was supposedly a controversy where I found out that Frontex was involved. It wasn't just the Greek Coast Guard. It was also Frontex. But like I said earlier, the big lie here is Frontex is under the command of the Greek Coast Guard. So of course they're doing it. They're one and the same. They're just wearing different uniforms.
I just thought of one EU flag emoji person who actually does love Frontex.
Go on.
I don't know if
Is
she
that guy who
has
banned
it.
us?
I don't know if she has it in her thing, but she falls into the category. Is Ulrike Franke
Oh yeah,
has
she loves Frontex.
continuously made the case for Frontex using drones, which is something that they've been employing. I don't know if it's been them or the Coast Guards, but they've been employed in like strapping UAVs with like to try to like seek out refugees who are trying to like, you know, quote unquote illegally cross into Europe. Yeah. And yeah, that's fucking scary and genuinely horrible. And she always tries to use the sense of like the humanitarian aspect of it. But in reality, it would just be to seek out people to like make sure they don't get close or like, gosh, she's so garbage. I hate her. I think there's very few people I hate on Twitter, and she's like one of them.
She's probably going to get more into it now because a recent update when I was checking like the news wires about this kind of stuff is because Turkey has been excluded from the F-35 purchasing program. I think it's like Erdogan's son or something is really into the idea of Turkey buying a fuck ton of drones to like monitor the Aegean Sea.
Well, yeah, no, because drones won't fucking decapitate you like the F-35 will. So Erdogan's smart. Erdogan's son's fucking smart.
Yeah, he's into this. But she loves her drones as well, so I'd imagine she might make a comment soon. Anyway.
She already endorsed Turkey's usage of drones. Why? Like, what difference does it fucking make? She like wrote a thing about how like I love seeing the murdered Armenians along the border. All praise to Azerbaijan. Thank you for buying European drones. But
at this point, I want to talk about how the EU handled the pushback reports. Like I said, this was all kind of like public news, investigative reports. The Guardian also had like a big one. Rai Uno, the like national broadcaster of Italy, also had a big one. So yeah. But EU Home Affairs Commissioner Eva Johansson, who is on the Commission president, she's Swedish as well, because whenever we want to do something evil in the European Union, we put a Swedish face on it because everyone thinks Sweden is great. She's supposedly the person that our boy Febreze answers to. We'll see how that doesn't really work out. She, after getting these reports, attempted to force the management board of Frontex to have a, quote, extraordinary meeting. So instead of that extraordinary meeting, a working group was formed. After 4 months, they made a report that didn't have any definitive conclusions on the 5 pushback incidents that they acknowledge happened. Our boy Febreze Leggeri only believes one of those things happened. One of the pushback incidents happened. So we're pointing out that all these investigative reports had like well into the realm of dozens of documented, reported pushback incidents.
Well, it's like the 20. What was it? They prevented 20,000 crimes. Was that the number?
Yeah.
It's like he probably thinks even more happened. He's like, no, just tell him one. You know, it's like just like the more you split hairs over the numbers is just to like mystify like everything going on. You know,
I mean, 20,000 to 1 is a good ratio. I don't know.
Yeah, man, this guy's just shooting 3-pointers over here. But okay, since that report came out, which I believe was in March, 4 of those 5 incidents have been cleared of any wrongdoing by the EU High Court of Human Rights. So, but also we're pointing out that the reasons why they've been cleared of any wrongdoing have not been revealed. And so they're just like, yeah, only one happened. That was possibly a human rights violation.
These are like daily things that happen too. I don't think people understand how normal pushbacks are. There's so much fucking footage out there of just like Coast Guards and Frontex just like harassing people. Doing and pushback. Like that's the thing is that then it's like very much a case of what is and what isn't a pushback. Is firing tear gas at people so they don't cross the border a pushback? I'm pretty sure the European Court of Human Rights would probably say no, it isn't. You know, it probably puts it under another category. It's perfectly legal. Boys. Yeah, perfectly legal to administer tear gas in Europe, as we've seen with how policing works in this country. A thing that then literally was designed as a weapon in World War One. Perfectly normal to, you know, shoot it at children, shoot it at migrants, shoot it at protesters, you know. There were videos, I think people remember too, of Chilean police knowingly shooting people in the head with tear gas that kills you. You know, it gets lodged in your brain and it kills you. Yeah, like I'm in no way surprised, obviously, that then the European, you know, whatever, Council for Human Rights is like, oh, yeah, we'll acknowledge one. When, yeah, I mean, like, we've seen this week alone 3 or 4 examples on one little teeny tiny, like, spot of land of these type of pushbacks happening, you know? And it just depends in the sense of, like, you know, at what circumstance does it then become a pushback? You know, like,
and it's not like that definition can't be stretched
in
the long term, right? Like, no, that's legal. So, you know, you can always kind of just like, I don't know, pull it just a little bit out of reach for whatever, you know, well-meaning organization is trying to like pin down or, you know, get them to, you know.
Yeah. After this report was made by the working group, the EU Parliament then set up a scrutiny group to file a report and issue recommendations. These recommendations are not binding, and there is no further investigation. It is literally a report on a report.
These motherfuckers love that shit. This is the thing, is that then Europe as a whole is just for like, it's like every West Wing nerd like times 1,000. It's like, West Wing nerds that like somehow fuck less than West Wing nerds.
It is Washington nerds, but with the inferiority complex that they are not Washington.
Yeah. they're all inbred and European somehow.
But like
nothing says fun like watching the West Wing with a little bit of water on your brain that's genetically inherited.
As a part of the window dressing, our boy Febreze got very excited publicly about this not binding, not investigative report that was going to be released, because that way he can say, oh, I'm for the transparent aspect of this whole thing. Yeah, investigate, it will be fine, you won't find anything because we're a good little agency, blah, 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 knowing full well that this not even investigation, this future report is going to be completely toothless. So that's fun. And this is just the pushbacks. Like going back to what Nick was saying, like a little bit, we're not even going to go into, because there's no time and it will be it will bum us out too much, of just like both Frontex and the Greek Coast Guard just like purposely misaging minors as full adults to send them back. Like just denying certain people's like age when they come up to them and say, I'm 12 years old. They're like, nah, you're 30, go back. Shit like
that's
that.
the thing too then, is that then with, at least in the sense of the, you know, stuff in Morocco and Spain this last couple of days, is that then like Frontex like demand, like maybe not Frontex, but like when some people like cross the border, the thing that's the craziest fucking thing is that then like they have to like show passports. Which is typically documents that then people who are migrating under you know, in manners that then the European Union may or may not find legal. These are typically documents that people do not have, or that are also issued from countries that are not legally recognized by the European Union. For example, if you come from Palestine, or you come from, let's say, a region like, you know, Kurdistan or something like that, where you are not typically then issued a passport because of, you know, reasons.
Or you're fleeing because your documents have been seized or destroyed in some way. Like you could be like a fully naturalized Syrian citizen, but you might have like absolutely no proof of it.
Yeah, exactly. So there is like always this like insane thing where you see then people like right when they cross over the border having to then scramble for any type of documentation that then proves that they're old enough, or I guess in this case young enough, to legally stay in Europe. You know, which is just like, I mean, it's kind of the thing that we've had like on this show repeatedly, is that like the policies of the far right do in fact actually govern Europe currently in the state that they exist in. And I think that we've seen this with the last two episodes just simply being the case. I mean, last week we talked about Israel Palestine and how the talking points of the extreme right in Germany concerning, anti-Semitism and racism and whatnot, that then like the discussion now in Germany is just like, I want to hate Arabs and I want to hate Muslims, and this is an excuse now. And it's so fucking clear, like these were talking points of the AfD and the NPD 5 to 7 years ago. And now the sense of with the, migrant situation here, I don't see any differentiation between what, organizations like Frontex do and the way that they cooperate with these very problematic organizations or legal problematic organizations, that then differentiates in any way with then like, remember, like there was a really big deal that then like Hungary was like closing their borders during the Balkan route and whatnot. I don't see any difference. Sorry. Like, you can't convince me that there's a difference. And if you can, then you're a fucking psychopath, You're too EU-brained, and, you should probably correct that.
That kind of leads us
you're
to...
Ulrike Franke, which you're just evil. Like...
That, I think, leads us very nicely, because we're about an hour here now, to the last question I want to ask everyone, which is, what is the purpose of Frontex? Because after all of this, after all these little pieces of information, after like discovering things like Frontex only releases their internal documents for 15 days and then takes them down on the grounds of copyright, like this is where all the insane numbers of like we've stopped 1 million crimes and have only done one ourselves comes from. Like the that kind of shit, just like, other weird stuff, like every NGO seems to fucking hate them. Like, I'm not going to be someone who sings the praises of NGOs, but like every NGO seems to fucking hate them. I don't understand how this like exists when like, I don't know, 1 million maybe misguided but well-intentioned like recent college graduates are just yelling at you constantly about like, stop doing the crimes.
We only done one.
Yeah, sure.
It also creates like 700, I assume, decently paying bureaucratic jobs in Warsaw. So who's to say if it's bad or not?
Yeah, right. The Guardian report that the Guardian also did with Reuna had that the numbers that they have is that Frontex has illegally stopped 40,000 refugees and has killed 2,000. All NGOs have basically stated that it's probably... those numbers are very conservative, and it's probably a lot higher on both. Yeah.
Well, you asked then the sense of who, like, why does Frontex exist? Who is Frontex for? And I'm going to double down on my, I guess it's a thesis because I want to prove this. This is, or my hypothesis, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that I legitimately think that Frontex exists in the way that it does because the right have found an organization, and the right, as in which is the majority of countries that then are governed in Europe. Like, we have had a massive conservative push in the last decade. The right has found an organization that then can do their job for them, that they don't have to then do based on their own funding, but then that they are kind of funding themselves, that they themselves also have discretion over because of the structure of how it exists. So you have a transnational organization that doesn't function as a transnational organization, and because it can't function as a transnational organization, there is no responsibility that then boils over to you. If something then illegal happens, it goes into a court that legally cannot enforce anything because Europe, nothing happens. The only thing that they will maybe clamp down on is like tax evasion. I think. And even that's questionable because there is like Europe has a very massive problem in its construction, as we've seen time and time again, of even just the period of us doing the show of the last, 2.5 years now, is that it is ideologues who run it with no means of actually getting anything done. But the only things that seem to like actually function are things that preserve capitalism and things that then preserve white nationalist ideas of border policing.
Yeah. No, I'd be with you on that because like I get the conclusion I came to is that Frontex is just another wing of this large project of obfuscating the horrors of border control. I feel like it's basically the same thing as like the deal EU did with Turkey, the deal the EU's doing with Libya, of just like we've found another way to kind of confuse who's at the helm of this. A part of that Guardian report that I found very interesting and also very disturbing is like what the Croatian border guard does. Something I didn't know or didn't think of, but I guess I could have figured out over time, is that Croatia has the largest border, like non-EU border, because they've got that big curve, basically. Yeah. And the reports have basically from like, I think Danish NGOs have found that the border control in Croatia have allegedly whipped, robbed, sexually abused, stripped naked, like migrants coming into the country. Because some migrants were had red crosses spray painted onto their foreheads, being told by the officers that was the cure for coronavirus. Like this kind of insane shit happens, but the thing is that will continue. Like whatever the Greek border guard has been doing will continue. It's just there'll be people in Frontex uniforms now, and when they do something horrendous, the Greek government doesn't have to democratically answer for those people from the Greek populace. Like the Frontex could piss off everyone in Lesbos. It could piss off everyone in Crete or whatever, any of the other islands. I'm sure I could name all of them. Don't ask me to do it. But like the Greek government will always just go, that's the EU. You can vote for that in when's the next one? 2022 or something? 2024? That's when you do it, and like completely mystify this whole connection of how they actually control Frontex on a national level.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Also, too, on another very quick, stupid note that then's related to this is that German car and weapons manufacturers have been making a lot of deals with Frontex.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the 1,000,001 lobbyists that fucking Febreze met with, probably.
Yeah. It's just really funny because there was a lot of also there's that thing too that's very funny. I don't know if you saw, there was this thing of like Ulrike Franke. So I got to bring her up again. She's like, "Wow, German."
Why are you obsessed with me?
She had a thing of like, "Wow, it's so great how the Bundespolizei, so like the German National Guard, is active in countries outside of Europe. They are active in working alongside Frontex. That is it."
Yeah.
So there is also very much a sense too of, I think, how like the European core too has like a sense to do with this as well. With this whole structure of who can come into the country, who can't, who is then like, I mean, like, is it really like that Frontex is on the border because because Europe doesn't want, or because Europe wants Greece to have more protection, or is that then that they don't want those migrants to potentially end up in Germany, or or the other goals that then that people who come into Europe, like majority of migrants don't want to stay in Greece. That's just notoriously so. There's horror stories amongst amongst people who come into Europe this way of that. Then like pretty much the Balkans are atrocious, and they all like they're you'd see those stereotypical stories that they would want to get to a European country that has a more stable economy, to say the least.
Better,
and I think,
better PR even.
yeah, and I think that then legitimately that's also part of the case too, is that the reason that Frontex gets so money and the reason that like the countries like Greece and the Balkans get so much assistance is to then keep these people out of the, European core, like the European economic core, because that's a thing too. That's, something that then a lot of people don't want to realize as well, is that then that there is like this internal peripheral sort of core structure within Europe based entirely on, material conditions.
Just to the point where you said like the right, I don't know if secretly is the right word, but like when it comes down to brass tacks, like runs politics or defines the political agenda in Europe. I think it's like just hearing the examples out of Croatia, I can imagine, a liberal saying like, oh, well, we can do this in a more humane way or in a better way. But the real political balance is like, you can say that. And then, the Frontex or whatever the constellation of organizations and everything that actually polices a border will say like, well, take it or leave it. Like you're in no position to make any demands. I'm reminded of, and I know we're making a lot of references to Israel. I mean, it's in the news a lot. I hope everyone knows that this is because it's an example of a global process of policing borders. Particularly evocative one. But all the videos of from like the PR team saying like, oh, imagine if this was London or Paris. It's saying like, I mean, but like that gets at a very like dark truth of a lot of Europeans, of a lot of liberals saying, what would you do? It's sort of like, you need us. Like that's what the right's saying. And so long as that is the power dynamic, that is a claim that works on whatever percentage number, a block of, I don't know, influential people, of liberals, of, I don't know, whatever, then they're going to have the upper hand, right? Then that is like how the chips fall. That is the power relationship.
Yeah, I definitely agree in that sense, especially in the, I mean, there is always this kind of sense too that like liberals definitely like default to fascism much quicker than they imagine as well. That in their good intentions, they default to fascism in a much scarier way than actual fascists do,
Well, it's almost it's that kind of almost old tweet of the Republicans. We can swap out like Republicans for right and Democrats for liberals, but it's like the right makes sure bad things happen. The liberals make sure good things don't happen. Where like it's going to be people like Kurtz who will actively push for this. Sanchez isn't going to actively push for this, but he's not going to undo it. He's not going to like. He
literally like said in front of the other day that then's like, yep, like 8,000 people came in and we sent 4,800 back. Yeah. It's like that's not like that's a horrible statistic. That is
like I mean it's he's not going to roll back the power of these people. But he's also very happy to use what I'm sure was expanded under Rajoy, like when the right wing was last in charge. Yeah, so it's you're either moving to the right or staying still. That's like your kind of two options in Europe, basically. And that's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think there's an opening, or I think it clarifies what the left, I mean, a left vision is, which is, not humanely policing the border. It's a vision where these aren't the political stakes. It's not the constant threat being like, well, I'm the one who is doing this dirty work to defend this thing, Europe. You actually have to like, whatever it is, like scramble the political order to a degree where that's not the political calculus. It really is a pretty big, I mean, it's a big task, but it's also like, I don't know, it can change quickly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's kind of worth pointing out that I think people in the left wing of Europe have very quickly copped to Frontex being evil. I just kind of compare. There was a lot of like borrowing from like the abolish ICE campaign from the United States when people started talking about Frontex online. I always felt like it was a little too copycat and didn't really have real legs. But at the same time, the left in Europe have turned on Frontex a lot quicker than the left in the United States turned on ICE or became aware of ICE being like this massive problem. So that gives me a little hope, or maybe we're just accelerating at these problems. I don't know.
We are an accelerationist podcast. I mean,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
We advocate for a literal fortress Europe. Fill the Mediterranean with concrete so everyone can walk over. I'm sure there will be no environmental consequences. Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Expand the Sahara into Italy. Yeah, that's probably what will happen if we do that. All right. So that's an episode. It's 2 bummer episodes in a row. If you want non-bummer episodes, subscribe to the Patreon. That's where we've been doing the fun stuff, actually.
Yeah, this is the thing now, is that we're just going to give you nothing but just horribly depressing content on the main feed. And then if you want just like the most joyful experience, just good vibes, you got to subscribe. You got to pay $5 a month or 450 euros or £4. I don't know what the breakdown is.
Yeah, we have a system in place. But yeah, like we've only scratched the surface of one defunct European monarchy. There's probably more.
I want to be paid in Republic credits. That is the.
You can also watch the Eurovibe streams.
Not gonna. Oh yeah. True. I thought you were about to say Eurovision. I'm like, Rob's speaking from the future or the past.
Yeah.
You can watch the video on demand of the Eurovision that will still be up.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, check out the Eurovibes. That's usually more fun as well. And we should do a fun episode. I don't know. I've got an article here about Italian influencers being in Italian politics. I feel like that's
next week. That's next week, baby.
That's next week. Yeah.
Next week bonus. Yeah, you're right.
They don't deserve it. They don't deserve to be happy.
Yeah, next week's episode is going to just be about a poor Georgian farm boy who hasn't who's been deported to Chechnya for some weird reason that makes no sense.
We threw him across the mountains.
Yeah,
and now he's in Chechnya.
Yeah, for $5 a month, you can feed him.
You can, for $5 a month, you can sponsor this once famous albino rapper who's now trying to make his way in Chechnya.
An angel.
Trying to make his way in Chechnyan UFC. All right. See you on Friday. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Peace.